Hey everyone, it's 2:30 p.m. and we are live online. Donny here, live from Stockholm, Sweden, with Innovation Fika every Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and not TikTok today, but usually TikTok as well. And today in this beautiful setting of a classroom, because I have a live audience today. I'm in Ulf, what is the actual name of the program that I'm in today?
Executive Program in Industrial Management.
The Executive Program in Industrial Management. Wow. I have a whole room full of super smart people. And with me today for this topic as well, I have a guest, of course. But before I let the guest introduce himself, I'll just say as well, as you all know, every Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m., I go live with Innovation Fika on all of these channels. I also write almost daily and post almost daily on LinkedIn as well about startups and entrepreneurship and everything connected to that. So follow me on LinkedIn. All of the written content is also saved on Medium. So go to Medium and check out all of my posts, 450 posts now there. And all of the recorded content from these broadcasts are on YouTube. So follow me on YouTube as well. That's about that. This is episode 73 of Innovation Fika. And I'm really, really happy to have Linus here today. So welcome into the studio, Linus, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and I know that we have lots of people watching. We're already getting some comments here from, let's see here. Michael Hanna let's see. Super excited for this. Let's go, Linus Arnold and Donny. Thank you, Michael. And also anonymous LinkedIn user. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. Hi, the world. And as I always say, keep the questions going as we talk. We take questions all the way through the show. It is only a half an hour. So it's, as we say, the world's fastest half an hour. Okay, with that, let's get going. And Linus Arnold, Ignite Sweden.
Yeah.
So I always start by saying, like, who are you and what do you do? What is Ignite Sweden and what do you do there?
Ignite Sweden is a non-profit organization with the aim to foster innovation through connecting startups with corporates and public organizations. Okay,
so in practice, you actually match big organizations with small startups.
Yeah,
that's in practice what you do. You're the interface in between there.
Yeah, we are the wingman to the startups in Sweden, you can say.
Trying to get you always need a wingman. You always need a wingman. Yeah, that's cool. So, and I know that, I mean, you've been doing this for quite some time now, but you've come quite far now. You've got quite a few startups and big corporates in your matching database today, right?
Yeah. We are focusing on Swedish startups, and we have today 3,000 startups more or less in our database. And our approach is that we're working with the corporates and the public organizations to understand their needs and then connect the needs with our database and suggest 20 startup profiles for the need owners. And then they select 7 that they would like to meet and interact with. And we are facilitating these meetings as well.
And what does this cost the startup? How much do they have to pay?
Yeah, the Swedish startup, they don't pay anything for it.
That's the same question I get when I work with KTH Innovation. Everybody's, how much? It's an incredible service. How much do I pay for this? And I go, nothing. Your time and effort.
Yeah,
it's an incredible service. So you actually have a full database of not only startups, but also now corporates. That I can, and I go to, let's see, this is the homepage here, right? Ignitesweden.org.
Yeah.
I go to ignitesweden.org and I enter my startup there.
Yeah.
And just, the profile. How far should I have come with my startup before I can put in my thing in the database here?
You should have a registered company, I would say. And then I guess it's depending on the corporate. I mean, some corporates, they are looking for quite early startups, and some corporates would like to focus more on more mature startups.
So I don't have to say, I have to have, turnover of X million SEK per year or anything like that?
It's just a database. Just sign up and we will determine if you are a good fit for the needs from our need owners.
Wow. I mean, I always say to all startups that this is a great opportunity because the fastest way to reach a market is to speak to somebody who has a market.
Yeah.
And for corporates, it's a great way to innovate because you can meet people who are focusing on one thing very deeply, something that you might not be able to do in a corporate because you have, as you said before, you have 1,000 things going on and you can't sort of put everything into one focus area. So, I mean, it's kind of feels like a match made in heaven kind of thing. What kind of collaborations do you see happening here? afterwards?
I mean, from our meetings, I mean, we can have a pilot, proof of concepts. I mean, then that could lead to further activities, commercial deals, and so on. So we have already seen a lot of examples for. We have only 5 years since we started, so already seen a lot of commercial deals coming from our service or from our process.
So far, everything sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that it's not the easiest thing to have like a super early startup with like 2-3 people meet an organization with 20,000-30,000 people,
No.
which is kind of a big thing there. What are the most common sort of misconceptions or sort of miscommunication things going on there in those early stages when we're starting to approach each other?
I mean, it's a culture thing between a startup and a big organization. I mean, startups are focusing on just one single thing. That's the most important thing in their lives. And then in the big organizations, they have, as you said, 1,000 different areas that they maybe are looking into in different ways to get these two cultures to work together. I mean, after the meeting is one of the biggest challenges, I think. And also that they are not clear on setting the targets for their collaboration early on. And also that they are not going directly into actions. They're talking, but it's better to get started, to do a pilot together, try it out, see what works and what doesn't work, and then have some conclusions from that.
I remember when I used to run startups myself back in the days. I remember we were speaking to. I won't mention names here, but we were a small company developing digital solutions for digital payments. And we were meeting a big retail chain that we thought were the perfect match. And they, of course, loved our solution. We loved them because they had lots of customers. And we were sort of sitting in a meeting, and everybody was like, "This is awesome. We have to do this. Let's do this together. Let's move forward." And this was like in February, way back, a year previous to this one. So it was in February, and they were going, "Yeah. This is good. We'll put it in our sort of in the IT backlog, and we should be able to speak to you again like the end of March." And we're going, "Awesome, 5 weeks." And they go, "No, next year."
Yeah.
And then we sort of realized that that the timelines are different. We exist in different sort of time dimensions of, this is what we do, and we need our deal tomorrow because we're trying to survive here. And for the big corporation, it's a huge undertaking to get something like this new in. So, I mean, understanding the sort of the time differences was a big thing as well, for me at least then.
Yeah. I mean, but I think the most common mistake from the corporate side is that they don't have internal alignment when they are starting these processes, that they need to go through a lot of convincing internally in order to get things happening. And that will take even longer time in order to get to a conclusion if it's a good fit or not.
Actually, getting a first question here from a LinkedIn user. So, what's the catch? Yeah.
What's the catch? I mean, the catch from what perspective between, solving the issue between startup and collaborate? Yeah. I would say, to have the strategic fit is the catch. To really have to solve real problems for the corporates and to get that fit. So you don't solve problems that are not prioritized, and maybe you don't have a good fit to that solution. So find that really good strategic fit between the solution and the needs and the problem that the corporates would like to solve.
But I think that also comes back to, we kind of mentioned it before as well. As a startup, you have your idea, your thing, and that is, of course, the solution to every single problem on this earth usually, because it's the best thing since whatever. And that might not be the exact same perception in the large corporation. I mean, make sure that you're fixing an actual problem that is important enough for them, kind of thing, and getting that match going there.
And I think that's the main thing to actually achieve. If you have a good strategic fit, if you not have a good strategic fit, it would never work.
Of course,
it would be like a failure in the end, I think.
But I will also say to that LinkedIn user that just as other governmentally funded, non-profit organizations in Sweden, there is very few catches because it's a government-funded initiative that runs to support the interface between large and small. It's not a commercial initiative where you're trying to maximize your profits by churning out deals.
No, we're having funding from the Innovation Agency and the Energy Agency in Sweden, and we're topping that with some private funding from the members. From the
you pay a membership to get access to the database as a corporate, which is a completely natural thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And any other sort of, you mentioned internal alignment issues in the large corporation when it comes to actually working with startups. Anything you can elaborate around that?
But I think in some cases that we have seen is that you have an enthusiast at the corporate level that really would like to work with startups. And then they meet a really interesting startup, but then they haven't really activated the legal side internally, maybe IT, or all the product owners and so on. And when they're starting to do that, and we have a startup they would like to collaborate with, they're not understanding maybe the reason why they bring that in, and also they come with maybe startup unfriendly documents that takes time to develop, and also if it's problematic for the startups to actually sign in the end. So have the kind of predefined process of what should we do if we meet a good startup, what is the process, and how should we take that from the first meeting to actually test it and then integrate and deploy it. So that's, I think, is really.
I actually have a story about that as well, because at another startup I was running, which was a digital, it was a digital online meeting place. You know, pre-Facebook, there was this huge craze with avatar-based chats everywhere like that, and then we were sort of one of the bigger ones. And we entered discussions with a big Swedish telecom company. No names mentioned, but it was a big Swedish telecom company with a blue logotype. And they were like, sort of, this is fantastic. We want to work with you. And we were saying, yeah, that sounds great. You have kind of a big global market. We want to work with you. But there was no interface for those connections. And there was no sort of, you can just plug in and their sort of their culture was, okay, we'll buy you, we'll change your name tags, and from tomorrow you'll be this brand instead. And we're going, no, we don't want to do that. We want to retain our brand. We want to work with you. We don't want to be bought by you. So they said, oh, okay, then we'll try and figure that out. And then like one later, we got actually the 70-page legal document. Fill in this, and we're going, what? And the things we had to, like 5 people trying to build a product, and we had to, it was all of these SLA agreements, and sign for this, and you have to have uptime and guarantee this, and we're going sort of whoa, take it easy, So, and that actually didn't work out due to the fact that the connections just didn't work back then.
No, I mean that's the case in many situations. I mean that you don't have that kind of alignment, and it stops because of that reason. But of course, I realize as well that it's difficult for a big organization that haven't the experience from working with startup to suddenly change and suddenly onboard this as a strategic way of working. But then I think it's important to look a little bit beyond the product innovation, to look at other areas of innovation that could have a positive impact on your business, and see if you can align people around within that area to seek for innovations that you can onboard in a more easier way.
Because it is an excellent way of innovating, as you said, outside of or adjacent to your core delivery. I know another good example that we have from KTH Innovation is one of the examples with Sodexo. We had a startup from KTH Innovation called Klimato that make climate. They index climate indexing of menus, and then they show which food on the menu is the most or least climate friendly. Simple as that. And some restaurants have used it very really smartly, because they've also changed the order of all the food. So the most climate friendly is on top and the least at the bottom. And they've sort of nudged their customers into actually sort of, eating better and also helping that part. And Sodexo, they took that on, and they said, this is super cool, because if all of our hundreds of restaurants use this, one, we can of course lower our carbon footprint, but even more importantly, all of the people and the customers will perceive us as more innovative. So it was, it's completely hands-off approach. Like after 2 months, they had 100 customers, this startup, which they would never have otherwise. And 1.5 years later, I think they've lowered the carbon footprint in those restaurants by like 25, 30, 40%. As a Klimato, we're actually here last year in this classroom speaking to your predecessors about this journey as well. And that was a really, really good example how it was like a very good win-win example of how both of the parties got really good results out of the collaboration. When they went in, as you said, with a really clear idea of what they wanted to achieve. Complete no heavy strings attached thing going on too early.
No.
And it's worked out beautifully.
Yeah.
Really good.
And that could also inspire to continue working with startups in other fields as well.
Of course.
For the large organization.
Excellent. Let's see. Getting any other questions here from online users. Here's one from Matthew. What was your most successful matching so far, resulting in common growth?
Oh, that's of course we can't speak of specific cases, but I mean, what I can tell, what I think is the most successful cases from our services on a conceptual level is when you're matching a startup with a corporate, and when you're revealing the corporate for the startup, they don't understand why they have been matched.
Okay.
Because we are looking at technologies maybe that could be transferred from other industries to the big corporates domain. And when you still, I mean, they don't understand, why should I meet this company? I have no idea what the reason are. And we are telling them, and then they have the meeting, and then it becomes a commercial, like a pilot and a commercial deal between them. Because then we know that they would never have met if it wouldn't because of us. Because if you are Boliden, a mining company, and you are a mining startup in Sweden, you probably will seek Boliden some way or another.
Yeah.
But to do that transfer from one industry domain to another, and see that kind of magic happens between them.
And that's like an added perk of your database, is that you can match, outside of the normal, normal boundaries of where you might think that you are in verticals as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Here we have Ulf Engård, a really good friend of mine, asking a question from the corner there. Where do you get your revenue stream from to pay your bills as a non-profit?
Yeah, we have funding from Vinnova and Energimyndigheten. And then we also have memberships fees from our corporates that are working with us. And then on top of that, we are running a lot of innovation ecosystem projects, trying to do assessments and connect it to startups in Sweden. So we have different way of achieving our revenue streams.
It's been running for 5 years now.
Yeah.
And I remember the first early years when it was more of a sort of, the project started out as, how do we build this interface?
Yeah.
And what works? Do we do workshops? Do we do speed dating? Do we do matchmaking? What works? And then as you've sort of found your way, it's more sort of, this is more like business as usual now today. How many sort of meetings, could you say the number, or how much do you do per year, and what's going on?
In total, first of all, we are a scale up. We've gone from 1 people working 40% in 2017 to now we are 37 people working, not full 100%, but still in the company. So we're really growing. But since 2017, we have been arranging 5,000 meetings between startups and corporates and public organizations. And we have been matching 1,000 startups, and have been working with 350 organizations.
Wow, that's really good. That was actually the answer of, I had another question here from Michael. That was actually the scale of Ignite's work in Sweden. How many meetings? So that was actually, let's see here. Okay, and that was an answer to the question. So thank you very much. Thank you. People are answering each other here in the feed. Perfect. Very good. That's the best way, the best thing ever. Let's see. Looking at the time, as I said, this is the shortest half an hour in the world, and we never let our guests leave without, of course, always. Let's see. Can I take away the banner here? Always also leaving us with their top 3 tips. And of course, Linus came in and he said, but I'm talking about 2 user groups. I can't give you 3 tips. I have to give you 6 tips. So today is top 6 tips of industry startup collaboration, 3 each. Let's start with the startup side. So we have Linus Arnold's top 3 tips for startups. And tip number 1 of that is connect with the ecosystem door openers.
Yeah, for Swedish startup, connect with us.
Yeah.
Sign up to our database. And if you are not a Swedish startup, go to your local incubator or to assess your ecosystem, and probably you have similar organizations or that could help you with finding the way to the right corporate.
What if I'm not a Swedish startup?
Yeah, that's what I mean. In other countries, they might have similar projects and initiatives, or ask your local incubator or accelerator if they could help you out with reaching out to the.
But I think that's a good tip in general for startups, is that, don't underestimate the power of actually connecting to industry.
Yeah.
Because they are also looking for good ideas. Thank you very much. Tip number 2 for startups: match their sort value with your offer. Yeah, we were talking about that before.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we did. But just be sure that you understand the problem, the need, and the value that the corporate would like to bring, and see how that correlates to your solution, and only solve real problems, basically.
Yeah. But you help doing that as well with the matching part. I mean,
there are curated meetings.
Yeah.
So we have a pre-assessed profile before. We know the need, and they have read through the profile of the startups,
Yeah.
and they have said this is interesting for some reason for us to dig deeper into. So we have that already. I mean, somewhat pre-assessed.
Yeah.
But then during the meeting, the startups needs to know the background, because we can't tell them everything, because of course it's confidentiality agreements that we have with the corporates as well. So they need to find out that themselves.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And then tip number 3 for the startups is stay in the driving seat after the first meeting, the startup side.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the startup should be not waiting for getting the response or getting here from the corporate side. They should be actually being active and ask for follow-ups and see if they can support the large corporate with their internal processes to get the right information there to speed up the process a bit. And not
March next year.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know all about that. Okay, thank you very much. And then for the corporates, top 3 tips for working with startups. Tip number 1 is think beyond product innovation.
Yeah, what I said before, if you're new to startup collaboration, I mean, the product is what you're doing. That's what you're putting a lot of effort into, your resources, your engagement. It's quite complex to integrate a startup solution into that core, and it demands a lot of work and structure to do so. So think of other innovation areas connected maybe to, I mean, it could be predictive maintenance, it could be logistics or other areas where it might be easier to create this kind of sandbox where you can try out and still generate a good value for the startups and for yourself.
Excellent. Thank you. Tip number 2 for corporates: include startup collaboration in your innovation strategy.
Yeah, I mean, quite few corporates that I met have a real innovation strategy. They have their R&D's strategy, they have other type of strategy, but I think going and list their innovation targets and then see what should we deal with internally, and then what should we deal with externally, and then how and use startup collaboration as a tool for reaching your targets that you have assigned for external innovation. So it's not just something on the side. It should be in the strategy to work with startups.
Cool. Thank you. And tip number 3, ensure internal alignment. You mentioned that before as well.
Yeah, I did. I mean, just be sure that you have the process, that you have the people that needs to take a decision in order to assess or evaluate the startup and so on, that's onboarded from the start.
Cool. Let's see. We have one last question here as well. What is your recommendation on how the corporate should set up to work effectively with startups? Separate startup collaboration team, or this is like an eternal question. We're here. Yeah. How should you work it? Should you have?
I think they're not really, I mean, good solution for all corporates. I think you need to do it in different ways depending on your maturity level and also what you're aiming for. But I think it's a risk to have one single person that doing all the interface with the startups. I think it should be a team that could work together with the startups and be sure to bring in the right need owners at the right time from internal departments.
But then again, what we were talking about, you were talking about internal alignment, and you were also talking about the whole sort of mental preparedness, and also part of the innovation strategy. So it means that it kind of is something we all know about more than just one person running downtown trying to get collaborations going.
Yeah, and one great advice I think would be this ISO certification, innovation management, that you can take as a person in corporates. I mean, to be certified. And be sure that you have the same language internally as well, how to work with innovation management when it comes to, in general, but also with startups.
Linus, thank you so much. Looking at the time here, it's almost 3 o'clock here. This has been Innovation Fika, episode 73 with Linus Arnold from Ignite Sweden, ignitesweden.org. Everything about industry collaboration. Check out their homepage. Check out Linus. He's accessible on LinkedIn. Ask him questions. And as I said, Ignite Sweden is a government initiative to create the interface between industry and startups, and it's working really well. Thousands of matching so far, thousands of matching to come. Good luck in the future. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, everyone out there. Thank you, everyone in the room.
Thank you for everything.
Look at this. For once, I have live applause. I don't have to press the button and do the whole sort of thing. No, but really, thank you, everyone. Thank you all for the questions. Keep them coming. Let's see. Thank you, Linus. Thank you, Linus, online here. Everybody's thanking Linus online as well. And as I will see you next week, 2:30 p.m. Innovation Fika, Wednesday afternoon, next week with a new guest. But for today, we're saying thank you, Linus.
Thank you so much for having me.
And have a nice trip back to Gothenburg.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap.